Today is Wednesday, July 3rd, 2019. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, charges have been dropped against the Alabama mother who was charged with her unborn baby's death. A Memphis hospital has suspended medical debt collection from poor people. No. And not just a Memphis hospital, a Memphis nonprofit hospital. Also, folks, an honest conversation about black folks on the 4th of July. Governor Rick Snyder, former Governor Rick Snyder of Michigan, will not be going to Harvard on a fellowship after students protested him getting that over his handling of the Flint water crisis. Also, some tips for teaching financial literacy to your kids, plus a couple of extreme cases of white privilege, like it's okay to rape somebody if you're a good boy from a good home. Y'all know he wasn't black. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, a hospital in Memphis, the largest hospital system there, said it has suspended court collection activities over unpaid medical bills. This happened days after investigation by MOK 50 and ProPublica was published on how they pursued debts held by poor people and even some of their own employees. Joining us right now to talk about it is Wendy Thomas. She's the founder, editor, and publisher of MOK 50, Justice Through Journalism. Wendy, so first of all, this is a nonprofit hospital. Okay, which means they don't pay taxes. And so walk folks through this debt collection, and they were even targeting their own employees?
Right. So what we found through our investigation is that over the past 5 years, from 2014 through 2018, the Methodist Hospital filed more than 8,300 lawsuits for unpaid hospital bills. And we found that many of these were filed against people who were low income, and some of those low income defendants were their own employees.
Okay, so they're targeting them. So the very people who are actually working for the hospital hospital to make money, but also it's a nonprofit hospital, which means they are a charity. They are just as aggressive as, frankly, for-profit companies.
And that's what our research indicated. It was really kind of striking to talk to some of the Methodist employees, including a housekeeper for the hospital, who makes just over $12 an hour, and she owes the hospital $23,000. Some of the Methodist employees that were being sued got their care while at the hospital. So there's this irony there that you don't make enough money to pay your hospital bills. You're left with a hospital bill after your hospital insurance doesn't cover all the charges. And then the employer, who's not paying you enough to pay your hospital bills, sues you to try to take back some of your tiny check to cover this debt. It's just this maddening circle that just keeps people trapped in poverty.
And so you and ProPublica dropped this story, and I take it you reached out to the hospital beforehand, they blew you off, and all of a sudden it goes public, and then like, let's go ahead and suspend those collection efforts.
Yeah, they would not make any of their executives available for any interviews before publication, and afterwards they still haven't talked to us, but they did release a statement saying that they're going to suspend collection activities through the court. But the statement itself is really vague, and it doesn't say if this is going to be retroactive in any way. People who are having their checks garnished right now, are they going to have that money taken out? So it was vague statement and didn't cover a lot, and I think that's probably intentional. But we'll have to see what the hospital does.
All right, then. Well, Wendy Thomas, a great job there with MOK 50 and ProPublica, and so glad to see y'all got something done.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it. Let's go to our panel. George Jefferson Nuri, communication strategist. Robert Patillo, civil rights attorney. Dr. Neon B. Carter, Howard University Department of Political Science. The fact that this is a nonprofit hospital, that's what really jumps out. How they make their money. First of all, they get tax write-offs, charitable donations. But how in the hell do you go after your own employees?
Well, That's not even the most ridiculous part. The ridiculous part is you have a hospital bill. I've had hospital bills, but there's no interest charged on those bills. There was one woman who started out with a charge in her wonderful story that was $1,200. She now owes them $3,200. She makes $9.25 an hour. How is there interest charges on your hospital bill? It's aggressive. It's like one of these universities that charges you over and over again for something they didn't really teach you.
Robert, these are hospitals who, frankly, are being fierce for-profit companies. And they're benefiting by virtue of being nonprofit.
Well, we have to understand the lack of regulation for many of these nonprofit hospitals. And there is often no governing body. They often are allowed to operate just simply by not paying taxes. I think this is one of the things we have to force into the national conversation on health care. Many of the candidates like to have these kind of outlandish plans. Let's concentrate on the nitty-gritty, getting people's bills down, making sure people are covered, they have access to adequate health care, and that the people should not be bankrupted because they get sick. You should not be sitting there with an injury thinking to yourself, do I need to really go to the doctor right now, or should I just see if this heals up on itself, on its own? Do I need to some Robitussin on, or do I need to actually see a medical professional? We have to fix this system. We have to have politicians that really take an interest in doing something legitimate about it.
And I think this just demonstrates the fact that in this country, medical care is still not a human right. I mean, we have rights for all kinds of things, but not to your health. And we know this is what builds a strong nation. And I think, you know, if you look at many of the stories that were outlined in this particular article, I mean, it was outrageous. I mean, people who were trying to be in good standing are being charged outsized interest. I mean, this is really usury. Actually, I mean, they need to treat these medical companies, these medical hospitals, the same way they treat payday loan operators in terms of allowing them or disallowing them from charging people interest rates that essentially mean you can have a choice between eating and being domiciled, or you can pay this medical bill. I mean, this is a nonprofit religiously affiliated hospital is even more disgusting, because their mission is to look after the least of us. And they're actually being the most aggressive. And I think they said they're like the #2 debt collector in the state. So, I mean, this hospital was particularly aggressive in the attempts to recoup these money.
Well, I grew up in Houston, and there are several nonprofit hospitals there. And Marvin Zindler, the late consumer reporter, was always going after them because he said, I'm sorry, you guys are nonprofits, and you are taking advantage of these tax laws and how they have expanded literally across the city, competing with for-profit hospitals. And he's saying, look, you should be taking care of the least of these as opposed to playing the same games. And so, but this also shows, and this is the thing that I love why this is important. There are so many people who bitch and moan about media. Oh, the media this and the media that. Yes. Okay? This is what happens when light gets shown on practices. If you don't have media, it don't happen. People hate two groups of people: media and lawyers. When they get their ass in matter of fact, there are 3 people they hate. They hate media, lawyers, and the NAACP. And when they get their ass in trouble,
who do they call?
Guess what they call?
Exactly. Right.
Media, lawyers, and the NAACP.
But this is the real use of the Fourth Estate. This is what Thomas Jefferson was talking about, giving freedom to the press so the press can monitor what happens in our democracy. This is the First Amendment, how it's supposed to be.
And when the press works well,
when
this
the
is
press,
what you
this
have.
is what it is.
I mean, because ProPublica has been on a roll over the last
few weeks.
And this is
exactly
what
ProPublica, which is a non-profit media
organization.
Right.
Exactly.
But again, Robert, there are people out there who it amazes me. They whine about the media. I cannot tell you how many emails I get every day from people who say, my son is in jail who didn't do it. They need assistance. It goes on and on and on, and this is the value of a free press, Robert?
Well, I think we also have to make the distinction between independent media and the mainstream media, because the mainstream media will run around covering every subject in the sun that nobody cares about. You know, they're talking
over and over again.
Right now, the news cycle is about Colin Kaepernick and sneakers and Betsy Ross.
Right.
Instead of talking about issues like this, so we have to start holding the mainstream media accountable for covering stories that actually benefit the community and actually have an effect. Instead of we've merged media, news, and gossip, so that now gossip is taking the place of actual news.
Well, let's talk about some news out of Alabama. If you want to see the importance of a black district attorney, this is it. Lanice Washington announced today that she will not pursue a misdemeanor manslaughter indictment against Marsha Jones, who lost her pregnancy after she got into a fight and was shot in the stomach. Yeah, Jones was shot in the stomach. Now, they pursued charges against her, the cops did, saying that she started the fight, so therefore, based upon their personhood law, she should be the one tried for manslaughter for her baby dying. Now, here's the announcement.
This is truly a disturbing and heartbreaking case. An unborn child was tragically lost, and families on both sides of this matter have suffered. Nothing we do today or in the future will change that reality. The issue before us is whether it's appropriate to try to hold someone legally culpable for the actions that led to the death of the unborn child. There are no winners, only losers in this sad ordeal. After reviewing the facts of this case and the applicable state law, I have determined that it is not in the best interest of justice to pursue prosecution of Ms. Jones on the misdemeanor charge for which she was indicted by the grand jury. Therefore, I am hereby dismissing this case, and no further legal action will be taken against Ms. Jones in this matter.
Folks, Alabama, of course, they passed their personhood law. Robert, you're an attorney. You look at this particular case here. I mean, you charged the woman who got shot.
You got to dive a little bit deeper into the police report to understand. According to what police say, that she was the aggressor in the situation. She attacked this man. The man was exhibiting self-defense. As part of this self-defense, he had to defend himself to the point of using a firearm, which struck the woman, killing the unborn child. This falls very similar to felony murder, that when you initiate an event that causes the death of another, you are culpable for that. Just like if you rob a liquor store and the liquor store owner shoots a customer on accident, you're culpable for that because you caused the initial altercation that led to the death. Because the Supreme Court has not upheld or overturned Roe, that is why the personhood bill in Alabama and other states is not in effect, basically saying that this child who died is not a person, which is the current status of the law. As the district attorney said, there are no winners in this case. The victim in the case, the unborn child, will never see justice. Nobody will ever be brought to justice for their death. It's an overall miscarriage of what we claim to be justice in our American system.
But let's be clear, this is an end run around abortion, right? This had nothing to do about this fetus, who would have been a child. It has nothing to do about the mother or the person who shot her. I believe it was a woman who actually fired the shot. Because Alabama doesn't actually care about children. Alabama is near the bottom on every indicator of child health, childhood obesity, oral health, access to health care. They have a hookworm problem. Why? Because they lack basic sanitation in some of the poorest parts of that state. So Alabama doesn't actually care about life or sustaining life. This was about abortion and trying to roll back Roe v. Wade, and about being punitive and trying to harm this particular mother. So I don't think I think what the district attorney did actually was the right thing to do, and it actually made a lot of sense. I mean, this woman could not be punished any more than she already had been. Not that could the person who shot her, quite frankly. I'm certain the woman who shot her and killed this unborn fetus feels quite awful about it. I mean, she's apologized for her actions that day, because this woman was unarmed, as the aggressor or not. She didn't have any weapon on her. She wasn't trying to stab or shoot anyone.
Right.
And so this is a bad situation. I think the district attorney made the best call that she could. I don't know what bringing charges was going to do and putting her in prison was going to do other than punish her further.
I think that this is, once again, the power of the press. I think that this story had not made national news if the press on all levels had not been outraged about this story. Even when you read headlines, they were like, the person who got shot, whose child died, is being charged with a manslaughter. Like, the headlines alone were like, what is this story? I think it's the power of the national press, this going viral, where Alabama had to say, we can't carry the weight on this one.
Well, the district attorney had to say.
She had to say.
Yes.
She had to say.
I'll push back on that slightly because the headlines in the press, this is kind of that gossip bleeding into news coverage, because the headlines in the press did not mention she was the aggressor, did not mention the other person was using imperfect
The headlines
self-defense.
didn't, but within the first paragraphs.
Well,
first two paragraphs, you got it.
first of all, when we covered it on the show, we did lay out those details
Yes.
of the case as well. But people still find it problematic, though, that you would charge her with manslaughter.
Well, if the
I don't even know what misdemeanor manslaughter actually means. How can
It
you be in a
means-
misdemeanor and it be manslaughter?
It depends on the state. It could be.
Okay.
It falls into the category of voluntary manslaughter.
Okay.
And some states it's misdemeanor manslaughter. Some states it's voluntary manslaughter. Just like in some states you have first-degree murder. Other states it's called malice murder. It's just the verbiage, the terminology of that particular district. But under the Alabama and other states' personage bills, saying that a unborn child has personage rights, then this would have been a manslaughter case, and even being dropped down to a misdemeanor manslaughter case. Because we have decided as a society that the life of an unborn child does not have value, that's the reason the district attorney didn't really have a choice but to drop these charges against the individual, because legally speaking, that child who is now dead was a clump of cells. It was just a parasite growing inside of her that had no rights, it had no life, nothing to be lost. That's why I say this is a horrible situation all the way around.
Well, but again, though, I tell you right now, I do believe that if this was not a black female DA, this would not be the outcome of
No,
this
that
case.
would not be. No,
Especially when we're talking about
absolutely.
Alabama. That wouldn't be the case there.
I totally agree with that.
All right, folks, let's talk about former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder. He announced a couple days ago that he was taking a fellowship at Harvard. Not going to happen. He now has withdrawn as a result of significant pressure by students there. They were critical of him and his handling of the Flint water crisis, saying he had no business for getting that fellowship. He blamed the lack of civility.
Power of the protest.
Right.
Power of the protest.
Yeah.
I mean,
Power
Flint
of the
doesn't
protest.
have water. That's
Right,
not
that's it,
civil.
right.
And here's
Right.
the piece. Harvard did not rescind the fellowship.
No,
Right.
So
declined.
he could have stuck it out.
But Harvard should have never offered it to him in the first place. I mean, even though they tried to frame it as we can learn from our failures just as we can our successes, Flint still does not have clean water
In how many
today.
years?
And this is under his watch. So you would actually give him this honor that he can put on any CV, any resume, that I was a fellow at Harvard University's Kennedy School, which we know carries a lot of weight, not to mention the fees that get commanded once you have that after your title. I mean, this is burnishing his resume. So that Rick Snyder now, I mean, like, I'm not going to cry for Rick Snyder. Rick Snyder has not cried yet for the people of Flint, Michigan, so he shouldn't have had it. Harvard should have never extended it, and this was the least he could have done. Anybody could have told him this was a bad idea.
He has not had to deal with the reality of the Flint water crisis. It was the state's decision for them to take over the city. It compounded the problem. What do you make, though, of the students making it clear, now, player, you can't come here?
Well, that is the good thing about being young, about being energetic, about being able to keep a fight up, even where the adults sometimes let you down. These students had the energy to stick this out and make sure that this came to light. And let's understand, even as a former governor, you still have significant political influence within the state. I think Rick Snyder should take this as a sign that he needs to redouble his efforts as the former governor to get this crisis taken care of, because you can marshal resources, you can marshal public opinion, you are the kingmaker often in the primary in that state, and you can force that to be a issue for anybody who wants your endorsement. So use this as an opportunity, and then you can come back in a couple years and say, look, young people, I fixed the problem. Now can I have my fellowship?
No, trust me. Trust me. That is not going to be his motivation
It's
to
not,
get
but
involved.
it could
His
happen.
motivation is going to be if they can take away or if I can be moved out of a Harvard position, what does that mean to my $50,000 a speech fee? If I can be embarrassed by this on national media and across the country, what impact will that have on me in the future? So he and his very high-paid PR people are now figuring out what he can do. But the motivation is never going to be humanitarian.
Well, let's talk about
The best in people.
let's talk about, of course, spending money. We're spending millions of dollars for Donald Trump to get himself off tomorrow for this 4th of July parade. This is some video shot by a person in D.C. as tanks were rolling into the city. All right, hopefully you guys should be able to see it now. Hold on one second. Do you see it now? All right. Yeah. All right. Well, let me know what's the power over here, folks. And so I'll play just a second. And so I don't know why we keep turning the thing off. Keep it on. All right. Do you see it now? All right, then. So tanks rolling into D.C. Of course, Trump has pretty much hijacked the annual nonpartisan 4th of July fireworks celebration. He wants a huge military display. He wants flyovers. He want to have tanks there. Also, we now know that they've diverted $2.5 million away from the Park Service, which was to go to service national parks to pay for this as well. Not only that, what the Trump White House has also done is essentially they've extended the White House to the Lincoln Memorial. So they have created, in essence, his own little party within this big celebration. They've given out tickets to the Republican National Committee to hand out to their donors and others. They have not given any tickets to the Democratic National Committee. Robert, I'll start with you. This is complete and utter bullshit.
Let's understand something. What President Trump is trying to do is project U.S. power in a time where people are challenging it internationally. The same way you had the Iranians blow up a drone last week, attack a shipping vessel in the Straits of Hormuz, the same way he met with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, the same way that Putin is continuously questioning U.S. hegemonic power overseas. He's trying to make a moment where people say, y'all must have forgot exactly what we have and the power that we can project internationally. Just because we haven't used it in a while doesn't mean we don't have this thing. So I don't think that it is as petty as many people
That's
believe.
not what this is, Robert. Robert, that's not what this is. Robert, that's not what this is. Robert, first of all, if a U.S. drone crosses into somebody's airspace, they got a right to shoot it down. Just like if somebody sent a drone in U.S. airspace, we wouldn't say, oh, sure, go right ahead. We would shoot it down. But this is not about projecting American strength. This is about Donald Trump playing toy soldier, Mr. Bone Spurs, okay, who didn't have the guts to go to Vietnam and who's constantly lied about it. He wants this big old show. He wants the same type of show a North Korea leader has, that Putin has. That's what he wants.
And the Philippines.
That's what he wants.
He wants to be a dictator. He wants to
admires, right.
He wants to be Kim Jong-un.
Right.
He wants to have absolute power. And I would also say we are still engaged in armed conflict in multiple places in the world. We are still at war, technically. Right. So this is not about projecting U.S. power that is being challenged. We are exhibiting that power every day, all around the world. This is about a man who really views this country as his own personal fiefdom.
Robert, does it make sense to divert nearly $3 million away from other national parks to pay for his little party?
I disagree with that. I think that should be privately funded by those same Republican donors who are going to be on the dais at the...
but it's not privately funded.
But it should be. I will agree with you that he should not be doing that. However, I think that we have seen in the last several years U.S. power be questioned around the world. Syria, in 20 years ago, not be stepping on America's...
Oh, hold on. We spend more money. We spend more money on defense in terms of the top 10 countries in the world who spend money on defense. We spend more than 2 through 10 combined. Okay, so somebody questioning American power, no, they're not. No, what they're questioning is whether or not we still want to be colonial folks. We still want to colonize people. What they're questioning is also America using its military power in its history to overthrow other countries, even countries where you had democratically elected leaders. That's the other part of America we really don't like to talk about.
And we're also questioning whether America is really committed to its own values. I mean, if we see what we're doing at the border with these detentions of children, women, and others, I mean, do we actually believe in the very things that we say we are supposed to believe?
And Joy, do you have to spend millions on a party to show American strength, or do you go ahead and accept the billions you're spending on defense and actually do it?
We're still the greatest power in the history of the world. We have a military base. We have military presence on almost every inch of this globe. We do not have to prove our military might to anybody. Right now, we are getting diminished image because he's running this country, and the whole world is wondering, how did that happen?
This is Robert, this is the big penis game. Okay, yes, it is. This is a guy, Robert. This is a guy who that's the whole deal. It's all about his little hands and his small feet. And so
before the Trump administration, from the time that
we
Putin
are
annexed
not
part of the Crimean Peninsula and took Ukraine and nothing happened, we have seen continuous habitual
because for the first time.
Oh, stop. Hold on. So he
history.
took Ukraine. What did Trump do?
That's the
What did Trump do?
Trump did nothing.
No. But what did Trump do when he became president? He went, well, he said that's what strong men do. He praised Putin.
And this is why people are questioning us on the international stage.
So we roll out
No.
I mean, this doesn't make
Wait a minute.
This doesn't make any sense.
If indeed they are questioning us,
But they don't respect us because of time.
if they are questioning us at all, it is because what Roland said. Our history has been very imperialistic. We have put soldiers on the ground in countries that influence their elections. We have influenced their future. We have overrode them with our language, our culture. We've made a little America all over the world. And quite possibly, it's time for us to rethink that. And I don't want Russian Crimea, okay? And I think the leadership of Syria has made big mistakes. But this thing that's happening tomorrow has nothing to do with any of that because Donald Trump hasn't even read the briefing papers to know any of that is happening.
And it's supposed to be an annual nonpartisan
celebration,
fireworks celebration, not a party for a grown-ass man.
With tanks.
Well, and potential flyover from Air Force One. Like, none of this makes any sense.
You know what? We're going to have Air Force One. We're going to have Marine One. We're going to have 2 F-22s.
And guess what? If you're flying out of D.C. tomorrow,
you're not going to.
Guess what? After 6 o'clock, between 6 and 9 o'clock, you ain't going anywhere because it's going to be a ground stop because of his flyovers.
Wait. Let me tell you who the hero is here. Let me tell you who the hero is.
Oh, by the way, the chiefs of the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, Marines weren't invited.
No.
Well, those are the same people who got us into military quagmires for the last 20 years.
No, whatever. This man does not respect anything.
Wait.
Joy, go ahead.
Who's the real hero here? Mayor Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C. and said, have your party, we're not paying for it.
She said, break that shit, pay for it. You mess our streets up, you're paying for it.
You still owe us money. You still owe us money from the inauguration.
But it's not privately funded.
It's not privately funded.
Just like the $100 million we spent on his golf trips, not privately funded.
Right. So hats off to Muriel Bowser for saying, do you, but not on my dime.
But since Nixon, every time a party is out of power, they complain about the other president going golfing.
No. Hold up. Here's the difference. When Obama played golf, he went to Andrews Air Force Base.
Right there.
He played on a military Air Force base. Donald Trump, when he was just in Europe, he literally told the Irish Prime Minister, meet me at my golf course, which actually was in the opposite direction.
Right.
It cost more money to go meet, and it was a 30 or 45-minute meeting because he wanted to play in his golf course.
Donald Trump is a grifter.
Which is failing financially.
He's a grifter in chief.
He is living off the United States for the next 4 years. He is living on our taxpayer dime.
No, not 4 years. Don't say that out loud.
Big pimping.
It could be.
It's 5 years now. It's 2019. So
okay. Not for the next 4.
Big pimping. All I'm saying is, I'm telling you right now, the forecast calls for serious thunderstorms tomorrow in D.C. Thank you, Lord.
Yes, hallelujah.
Thank you very
the ancestors have spoken.
Thank you very much. Send a Noah's Ark type rain tomorrow, because y'all know that big ass baby don't like being out in the rain because it's gonna mess his hair. It's gonna mess his hair up. And so I hope there is rain, thunder, and lightning all
day.
I'm talking about from 5 p.m. all the way through midnight. If y'all are planning to come see the fireworks, go ahead and stay at home because you know how it is. Literally, I hope as many people show up for this as they did for his inauguration. And we know that wasn't much. And so, again, that'd be nothing greater to see an empty Lincoln Memorial other than the Republican donors who are there.
With umbrellas.
And yes, please, rain. Lots of it. Storming all day. All right, got to go to a break. We come back. We'll talk financial literacy and kids, and also some grown people who broke as hell need to also have some financial literacy. That's coming up next. Roland Unfiltered. You want to check out Roland Unfiltered? youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. MarijuanaStock.org is another great investment opportunity if you were lucky enough to invest in their last crowdfunding campaign. You, of course, now know that those folks are invested in a publicly traded company. They raised a ton of money in a few months investing in legal marijuana farms. Now, of course, they have a new investment opportunity, which is as good or if not even better. I'm talking about industrial hemp CBD. For those who don't know, the hemp plant is the cousin to marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD, which means hemp CBD gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Now, until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the U.S. and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed all of that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. They need land to grow all the plants, which makes for an incredible investment opportunity, and that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is real simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. You can invest in the crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200 up to $10,000. Like I said, you may not want to miss out on this opportunity. Go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org to get in the game and to do it now. All right, folks, yesterday we were talking about the Colin Kaepernick story and Nike over the Betsy Ross flag and how Nike pulled it because Colin Kaepernick objected. Now, I also made a point yesterday that I really don't understand who in the hell would pay $200 for a pair of tennis shoes. I really don't. Okay, now I know that's made Michael Jordan a billionaire. I know it's made LeBron James a lot of money, but I'm just letting y'all know, ain't no way in the hell I would buy $200, spend $200 for some damn tennis shoes. Now I said yesterday, forget buying a pair of Nikes, buy Nike stock. Now I've been saying that for years, and it's important for us to understand again the difference between those of us who are consumers, those of us who are consuming stuff, as opposed to those of us who are investing and then living off of that. Joining us right now is Dr. Angela Reddick. She is founder and president of ARDX, and we're talking about this whole issue of financial literacy, and glad to have you here. I believe, and I've said this for years, that when you buy your kids some Nikes, I guess you get them a Nike box, put the stock in the box, put it under the tree, and say that's your Christmas gift. Because I think if we don't begin to walk folks through this early, absolutely, then they're playing catch up for the rest of their life to understand money, how to use it, and how to save it, how to invest it, and how it works for them.
Absolutely. I am actually living that every day. My background, I was born in public housing. I was able to rise up above that because of the foundation my mother set. She was a teenage mother, went away to Ivy League University, went off to law school, came back, and she taught me very early on the value of a dollar, to have a healthy relationship with the dollar. And so today, fast forward, I, 13 years ago, founded ARDX as a healthcare management consulting firm doing federal government contracting, over 100 employees. And what I know is ownership, owning my passion, owning my future through entrepreneurship has been the key for me. To be able to employ individuals, and that is now what I teach the youth through Envision Lead Grow. We have a program where we're teaching girls all over the United States. We're now in 30 states. The value of entrepreneurship, not only having a vision and having a passion, but translating that into dollars so that we can empower those areas of poverty.
So when you said your mom taught you to respect the dollar,
oh yes,
what did that mean? Did it mean? Did she walk you through and saying, look, this is how much this actually costs?
Absolutely.
Because, I raising 6 of my nieces, I did that. No, I need y'all to understand what this costs, the laptops that you have. So if you decide to sit it on the floor and something break, I said, I'm not getting the damn thing repaired. Because I said, I'm going to walk you through what things cost so you understand that.
Absolutely. So I remember very vividly My mother, she worked for everything. Yes, she was upper management and executive in AT&T. But I recall we would sit down and she would talk about money with me. If I borrowed $1, guess what I had to do? Sign a contract to return that $1. So I understood what a loan meant early on. And if I didn't honor my commitment, what it also meant was that you have to pay interest. She also taught me about the value of saving. She taught me about 401k very early on. First job out of school, I already knew this is what you do. You just do the 401k, etc. So those things were ingrained very early on. So that just became who I am. And I'm able to pass that down to my children, all 3 of them. So they understand the value of not spending what you don't have. And so I think that's the foundation, is living within your budget, and a key word, budget. And so that is exactly what we talk to the girls about during our entrepreneurship program. It's not only about getting money in, but it's also understanding what to do with the money so that long term there's a value more than the dollar that's coming in today.
We talk about, before I go to a panel for some questions, we talk about mindset. Yesterday we were talking about, but I've often been saying how there has to be a massive reprogramming of Black America. And when I think about, again, talking about Nikes and other items, how people operate, there's this whole this whole deal of my worth is based upon that. Just like I really don't understand folks who spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on some Louboutins because it's a red bottom. That's about the dumbest. That's about the dumbest hell to me, as far as I'm concerned. Between the black bottom, tan bottom, red bottom, and you're gonna spend $5,000 for a pair of shoes. Now, if you got it, that's fine. But for the folks who broke as hell, who don't, same thing with handbags and everything else. But also, when I talk about state of mind, so it was so funny. I was sitting here, I was smacking some fool on Twitter because this guy was like, you're doing the digital show now because you can't get on cable. And I'm like, no, I didn't seek another cable job because I want to own the show. The reality is Joy Reid doesn't own her show. Don Lemon doesn't own his show. I've had meetings pitching to networks about shows that I would own. And it's interesting when you have people who think that that's the be-all, the end-all, not realizing that they're getting paid a salary. They literally do not own those shows. They're not making, if those shows hit, you can be making money off of that content 20, 30, 40, 50 years down. If I'm no longer here, my family could still be making money off of that. But if you don't own it, then somebody else is. And a lot of people just really have no clue what that's about.
Absolutely. And you know, the reality is we only know what we've seen. If you've never been exposed to it, you don't even know that that's a possibility to have a career or even own the behind the scenes. You're thinking you have to be in front and center. And so that's something also that we talk to the girls about. You know, we form businesses based on what we've been exposed to. And so what we're trying to do is expose these young ladies to opportunities, in particular in the STEM field. The number of female businesses has increased through the years, but still we only own 4% of the revenue coming in. And that is because typically we are starting businesses in industries where we can't get a lot of revenue. And so we're trying to map their passion to something that will allow them to bring in more revenue. And again, it comes from exposure, just exposing them to the possibilities.
I know that the civil rights movement, the modern day civil rights movement, was really in order, the outcome of it is we are full consumers. We could sit at the lunch counter, we can now pretty much buy a house where you want to. You can rise up the ranks and make that money. It's almost like in South Africa, you were given the crown without the jewels. Without understanding how the financial system works in this country, we're never going to actually be free. We have to understand how the money works, because you'll always be at some level, as Roland was saying, some level of enslaved, unless you are in control of your dollars. But that means that you have to make the sacrifices, I'm sure you'll agree, to do the dollars. There is times where, as an entrepreneur, as Roland says, you're broke as hell. And then there's times...
Yeah, you paying everybody else, not you.
Everybody else
I ain't got a problem on this show. We've been here 10 months.
Right.
I haven't paid myself in 10 months. Because
But that's
when
the
you're building
sacrifice you're
something,
making, 'cause
that's what
you're
you have to do.
That's what you have to do.
That's right.
And we have to move from identifying ourselves with those red bottoms, identifying our value to that stuff. It is you're the master. You get to be the master when you're the entrepreneur. And I'm really happy to see you're starting with young people, because we start really early having our children identify with stuff as their value.
Go ahead.
And key phrase, a key term, identity. And that's why it's so important to work with these young ladies in middle school. That is when you are really making a determination of where you fit in this world. And so if you identify yourself based on things, then you're always going to be chasing a dollar. And so we try to get to them to change the mindset, because that's where it is. That, yes, we're building an entrepreneurial mindset. Does that mean they're all going to own a business? Quite honestly, a large percentage of them have actually formed the business. However, do I believe that everyone will have 100 employees? I don't necessarily believe that, but what I do believe is that their mindset will be different, that they will own their future.
Right.
And so they will no longer be identified by the things that they have, but the power they have because of who they are and what they believe.
Robert?
One of the things that I find, particularly given the way that many of us come into the middle class as African Americans, you know, we're often the first generation went to college, first generation to become professionals, and because of that, we have a scared money mentality. As in, we take the safest investment. We'll take the mutual fund instead of the IPO. When it comes to entrepreneurship, you know, we'll put a little money aside, but we're not really taking the big risk. How do we teach the next generation to get out of that mentality and take those big bites at the apple? Even taking Roland's example with the sneakers, I got into started talking to young people about sneakerhead culture, and many of these people are buying $250 tennis shoes, getting the only ones that exist, and then reselling them for $1,500 later, then flipping that into new profits. And because the older generation doesn't understand,
Now that's making sense, though.
This generation doesn't understand. We look like, y'all kids, get off my lawn. What you doing buying them sneakers?
But that's not even necessarily the older generation. That's no different than people who buy wine. Or folks who, and knowing full well that I was talking to Robert Smith, richest black man in America, about this here. I was in his wine cellar, and he was talking about, you know, what appreciates 10, 15, 20%. But again, that's a conversation that, frankly, it simply is not being had, because what also happens when you get that first generation, then all of a sudden you also, in many ways, are funding damn near your whole family.
That's right.
And you actually can't even really be able to build wealth, because you're in essence helping everybody else.
Yeah, so how do we create that conversation where we can have somebody who is investing in wine explain to somebody who has an interest in tennis shoes or handbags or something else to make that same investment? Because I think that's where the disconnect happens.
You know, I think it just comes from having the conversation. That's the only way we're going to do it, is that we have to begin to be okay having the dialogue. In the program that we have a track where all we talk about are financial matters. So just the fundamentals of understanding what a budget is, the fundamentals of reading your balances and understanding where that can go. We're talking to the girls about taxes. So if they're setting up certain business structures, they understand an S Corp versus a C Corp. We took them on a trip to one of the large law firms in the Hampton Roads area, and they were blown away by the level of questions that the girls have. I will say they have the capacity to learn. We have to be willing not to talk down to the youth, but just to be able to have real talk with them. I've seen it work.
Yeah, and so I think, you know, this sounds really great, because part of it is, you know, some of us don't have people who know how to do anything with money because they've never had any, right? And demystifying this whole area, because some people just have no idea. I mean, I will say, I mean, it's a very steep learning curve. So how do you demystify that, particularly for people who's like, I've never had anything, so I don't know about investment culture because I've never had any money to invest, and my parents didn't have any money to invest. And then also getting people out of the mindset, like, I have to have a big chunk of money. Like, I can only do something if I have several $1,000s. I can't do anything with the loose change or the few dollars I have, or the extra $100 I might have a month. Like, how do you talk to people about how to make that money work even?
Go ahead, final comment.
No different than any other conversation I'm having. I start with where the girls are and take them where I'm trying to have them go. So we start with very basics. We're actually using actual money, going through scenarios with them so that they can see the value of the money. Through the year, we work with them. Once a month, we have webinars with all the girls all over the country. So the vocabulary grows. And they're not intimidated just by the conversation and by the language. And so they're able to repeat those words in the context of which we are actually having the conversation. So I would say starting very basic and making it relevant to them. With the tennis shoe example, they understand that what you can do with that $200 versus what you're choosing to do when you are a consumer of those tennis shoes.
I was going to have that to be last point, but somebody named Conscious Thought on YouTube said there are 3 barriers to entrepreneurship: lack of access to capital, lack of access to capital, lack of access to capital. And I say that's a lie. That's a lie, because I think first and foremost, the barrier to entrepreneurship is to even understand what the hell an entrepreneur is.
That's right.
It's not necessarily, because first of all, if you don't have that understanding, you can't even get access to capital. There are 2.6 million black-owned businesses in America. 2.5 million only have 1 employee. They're doing, on average, $54,000 revenue gross a year. Okay, so that means that there are only 100,000 black-owned businesses with more than 1 employee. And I think for a lot of people, they're also caught up because you have to deal with ego. I've spoken to numerous black chambers of commerce at their annual meetings, and very rarely has M&A, mergers and acquisitions, been on the agenda. And I'm like, how in the hell you think you're going to be able to grow if you don't merge with someone or acquire somebody else? And I spoke to the Department of Transportation when Ray LaHood was Secretary under Obama. And a sister came up to me at the end of my speech and she said, me and my business partner have been preparing to sell our company for 3 years. She said, it never dawned on us to buy somebody else. She said, we never even thought about it. Our whole deal was sell. As opposed to buy, as opposed to acquire. And she said, at the end of your speech, I called my partner and said, put a hole in all of that. We should go out and acquire. And so, and I think that statement alone, and I appreciate this person typing that, but that's actually not the barrier. This, to me, is the biggest barrier to entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
Getting out of your own way. That's the biggest barrier.
Amen.
Go ahead.
100% agree. And also, I think, you know, expert performance, that's part of my research is, you know, the whole outliers, 10,000 hours makes an expert. I will tell anyone, to become an expert entrepreneur, you have to become an entrepreneur. And I think so often people get stopped if they can't do the big, they won't do it at all.
Precisely.
And the best way to start is to start small and scale up, because you learn your mistakes with limited risk. How do we teach them to take risk? Experience success, then you're willing to take a little bit more risk. So start small and then build from there, and then you're learning with very little risk and very little expenses. And
it's explaining to people the reality that like every dollar does indeed matter. I mean, I was dealing with my niece the other day, and I'm like, look, understand, when one thing doesn't happen, that's having an impact on my income.
That's right.
You impact my income, that's impacting you getting paid. If my income is impacted negatively, your ass may not have a job. So the action that you don't take, or losing a piece of equipment or something on those lines, and I got to replace that, again, that's money out of my pocket. You looking for a check every 2 weeks. And I think that, I do sessions called Me Inc., where I tell people you have to have a CEO mentality when you're working for somebody else. Because I think part of the problem also, there are people who are working for people who go, oh, this ain't mine, I ain't gonna worry about that.
I'm going home.
Right. As opposed, and then, but when it's payday, they're like, where's my check? Well, hell, we ain't meet payroll because y'all didn't do enough in the past damn month to generate revenue.
That's right.
You know, and I'm like, you got to connect the dots for folks to understand, and that's why a lot of people also don't like having to work, like, well, I don't want to work for a supposed entrepreneur, but they think that when you can work for a major company, it's the same thing. Jeff Bezos, I love that photo of Jeff Bezos sitting in his little small office with this ratty desk and his little bitty sign that said Amazon on it.
Right.
Now he's the richest cat in the whole world. But trust me, he was pinching some pennies when he was in that little bitty small office sitting over that raggedy computer.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. How can folks reach you? Get more information on what you do with young girls.
Oh, absolutely. envisionleadgrow.org. That's the website.
All right, repeat it again.
envisionleadgrow.org.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, got to go to a break. We come back, talk about a New Jersey judge. Really? I'm not going to sentence a kid to prison for rape because he came from a good family? Yep. You know he wasn't black. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered. Back in a moment. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, HBCU Giving Day, pull it back up. Tuskegee University is our school of the day. If you want to support Tuskegee, please go to tuskegee.edu. That's tuskegee.edu. All right, folks, a crazy story out of New Jersey where a judge had a case overturned. This literally happened. An intoxicated 16-year-old girl was assaulted by a 16-year-old boy in a dark basement during a pajama party that had lots of alcohol. The boy shot video of himself penetrating her from behind, her torso exposed, her head hanging down, and he later shared it among friends in a text that said, "When your first time having sex was rape." But a family court judge said it wasn't rape. Instead, he wondered if it was sexual assault and defined rape as something reserved for an attack at gunpoint by strangers. He also said the young man came from a good family, attended an excellent school, had terrific grades, and was an Eagle Scout, so he deserved leniency. Well, the appeals court, frankly, overturned that.
I mean, first off, obviously he didn't come from a good home. This is not a good home. And those good grades.
Rape is only if you had at gunpoint and you're a stranger.
But I mean, I don't know what definition of rape or sexual assault this judge is operating under at this point. But when you are saying you're calling what you're doing rape, you're taping this woman. Everybody's intoxicated, so nobody can consent to this act. Right. This is a problem. This sounds like the textbook definition of what rape would be, and that somebody has to have a resume to not be called a rapist or be charged with something more serious.
Robert, these are, but we had the case out of California. We had the case, I think it was in Wyoming. I mean, it's as if the judges are like, here's a white guy. I mean, he's a nice kid.
And we don't want to ruin his life.
Right.
I think beyond being a black-white issue, it's a patriarchy issue. It's a misogyny issue. It is an issue with older men not respecting women. They think of themselves as being the teenage boy. Like, well, I was drunk at a party back in 1960. That wouldn't be rape. But they can't put themselves in that situation where if you were the person actually getting penetrated from the behind while you were passed out, would you have this same level of leniency?
Well, if that was your daughter or your niece.
No. You individually, if it is you on video getting penetrated from behind by somebody,
right?
Would you say to yourself, that doesn't seem like rape to me? I might have wanted it. So this is why we have to make sure that we retrain much of our judiciary, because many of these judges are elected on the local level. People, when they go through ballot boxes, they go, mayor, city council. They forget those judicial races at the end. Concentrate on those races at the end of the ballot.
Well, Doc, the appeals court has some very harsh words for this judge.
As they should. I mean, this is affluenza on steroids, right? With this boy, and I mean, we can call him a boy because, of course, they want to infantilize them at this point, and say, well, he doesn't deserve this. Like you said, why does his life have to be stopped at this point? Because he was going to go to college. As if that is the blanket excuse. I mean, how many children can say, well, I had this bright future ahead of me, and then my life got derailed by some choice I made?
Right.
I mean, this is the defense, I mean, the willingness, and I do think Robert is right here, to the extent that these judges see themselves in these young people and say, that was me at one point in time. I can understand why this happened.
Crazy.
That does happen. But, I mean, this is the world we live in.
All right, y'all. he should have got this judge, Kiana Lillard. Y'all know she black. Of course, it's during a court hearing. It took place in Redford Township, Michigan, where, let's just say, she was not too particularly pleased with some folks who began laughing as she handed down a sentence in a DWI case. Amanda Kozel was being sentenced for a deadly drunk driving crash. Yo, check this out.
Yeah, it's time for him to go. And I don't know who he is, but whoever can sit here at a tragic moment like this and laugh and smile when somebody has lost a family member. I mean, the entire time that Mr. Zerker's sister was speaking, that clown, and that's what I'm going to call him, a clown, was sitting there smiling and laughing. Yeah, you can go too, because if you don't know how to act, you can go to jail. So leave. Anybody that can sit there and laugh and smirk when somebody, take her, she's going in the back. She's going in the back. Anybody else want to go? You can go too. This is a court of law. And these are very serious matters. And I understand you all are upset because your loved one is going to prison. But guess what? She's going to prison for the choices that she made. These people are here grieving, saddened, because a senseless act took away their loved one. And you all are sitting around here like it's a joke. Not in courtroom 502. Not today and not any other day. Ma'am, you are being taken into custody for criminal contempt. Your disruptive and disrespectful behavior disrupted today's proceedings, and you, ma'am, are going to the Wayne County Jail for 93 days for direct criminal contempt. Anybody else want to go? Try it. Try it. Oh, my mouth? Well, thank you. Your mouth got you 93 days.
Kozel was sentenced to 3 to 15 years in prison. I'm good. 93 years in jail. Go sit your ass in that jail cell. See you keep running your mouth. Robert?
Well, unfortunately, this is common. This is nothing in that video is an outlier from anything I've seen in the Fulton County Courthouse, because people developed a lack of respect for our institutions. You know, there's a point in time where if you went to a government building, you dressed up to go. You put on a shirt and tie. I've seen people facing a life sentence in prison. They show up in court in a pair of leggings and a wife beater. So we have to understand that when people don't have this level of respect and decorum for the system itself, then that leads itself to people disrespecting the court, disrespecting the authority that the court has over them, and then thinking that this is the Jerry Springer show or just Maybelline or something like, no, this is Superior Court, you're going to jail.
But I do think there's a difference between outbursts in court, laughing when somebody's giving a victim statement, and what you wear. Some people actually don't have a suit.
Right.
That's a real thing. But laughing when somebody is trying to give their victim impact statement, that is just outright disrespectful. And that's a little bit different than how you dress. That's a behavior, right?
I ain't got no problem with this sister.
Well, to piggyback on what was said, I think there was no respect for her position as the judge. And I'm wondering if that was because she was an African-American woman as the judge, but that would have been different had it been a white man. There was no respect for her position as the judge. And fortunately, she knew that immediately. And I love that line, not in courtroom 502. Not now, not ever.
Lock that ass up. Lock them up.
And 93 days is enough for you to marinate on what you get.
Yeah, you ain't lying.
3 months is
a lot of time.
You'll learn to keep
marinate
your
on
damn
this
mouth
thing.
shut next time.
Right.
All right, y'all. That's it for today. We, of course, will be broadcasting. We'll be in New Orleans beginning tomorrow for Essence Fest. And so we'll be going live from there at different times for some of the interviews that we have. Of course, we'll be back for a show on Monday. I'll still be in New Orleans because I'll be speaking at the Delta Convention next week. But on tomorrow, we got something great for you folks, and I got some great guests. And so this morning, I had Dr. Greg Carr on Tom Joyner Morning Show, and we were talking about what does the 4th of July mean for African Americans in 2019. And so when we got done, and of course, it was a takeoff of Frederick Douglass's speech on July 5th, 1852. What does the 4th of July mean for the slave? And so I was sitting here, and I was like, yo, you should do something different. I said, so, I'm going to do a reading of Frederick Douglass's speech. Then I was like, no, we're going to do something different. I said, we're going to have different people do a reading. And so I just started sending text messages to folks who I know. And so activist Brittany Packnett, she said, yo, great idea. I'm in. And so Tamika Mallory, she said, great idea, I'm in. Philip Agnew said, great idea, I'll read a passage as well. Pastor Jamal Bryant said he would read a passage as well. Then Reverend William Barber said he would read a passage. Then Reverend Frederick Douglass Haynes, named after Frederick Douglass. Then, of course, also Reverend Kenneth Whalum. So then I began to email some other friends, Paulette Washington. Y'all don't know her as an actress. Y'all should know her because her son, of course, Black Klansman. Yeah. Dat Washington. The other Washington. She married to Denzel. And so she's actually going to do something for us as well. Regina King is also going to read a passage. And Samuel L. Jackson is also going to read one. So we're going to put all those together, combine, and to make up the full reading of Douglas's speech. And so we're gonna stream that tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then on Friday, we're going to stream documentary done by Operation Hope with Andrew Young, talking about It's All About Money, connecting money in the civil rights movement. So that's going to be on Friday. So you want, of course, set your live notifications on your phone. So when we go live on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, you immediately know exactly what is going on. So we look forward to that. I want to thank our panel. Thank you very much, Joy, Robert, Dr. Carter. Thanks a bunch. And folks, don't forget, you can support Roland Martin Unfiltered by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to make all of this possible. And so, yeah, this is a black-owned show. Me, I'm black. And so the reason we're able to do that, the reason we're able to do this reading tomorrow and do the documentary streaming on Friday, because we don't have to ask anybody, because we own and control it. That's what happens when you own and control. And so please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can give via Cash App, PayPal, as well as Square as well. So, folks, I shall see y'all again tomorrow in New Orleans. If I see y'all down there, let's get together, take a selfie. And I can't wait to do a line dance, Frankie Beverly Mays. They're coming back to Essence for this year's anniversary. Gotta go. Hi!